The moment Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett stepped into Judge Andrew H. Stone's federal courtroom, the air crackled with tension. What happened in the next 30 seconds would shock the legal world and create the most viral courtroom moment of 2025. Judge Stones, sitting high on his bench in his traditional black robes, looked down at the 33-year-old freshman Congresswoman with what could only be described as amusement. His weathered face, framed by silver hair and decades of courtroom authority, broke into a smirk that would soon become his biggest mistake. "Congresswoman Crockett," he said, his voice carrying across the packed courtroom, "I've heard you have some concerns about judicial proceedings. How refreshing to have a politician lecture." The courtroom fell silent. Lawyers, court reporters, and observers all held their breath. Crockett stood at the plaintiff's table, her burgundy blazer crisp, her natural hair styled perfectly, her brown eyes blazing with a fire that Judge Stones clearly underestimated. What he didn't know was that Crockett had come prepared for war, and she was about to deliver a legal education that would leave this 67-year-old federal judge speechless and potentially end his career. Before we dive into this incredible showdown, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, so you never miss moments like this where justice gets served in the most unexpected ways. Now let's see how a young black congresswoman from Texas just dismantled one of the most arrogant judges in America. To understand why this confrontation was so explosive, you need to know who these two people really are and what brought them to this moment. Judge Andrew H. Stones has sat on the federal bench for over 20 years. Appointed during a previous Republican administration, he's known throughout legal circles as the Gavel King, a man who believes his courtroom is his kingdom, and his word is absolute law. At 67, he's presided over thousands of cases, dismissed hundreds of appeals, and built a reputation for being tough on what he calls frivolous lawsuits and political grandstanding. Stones comes from old money. His family has been in Texas legal circles for generations. He attended Harvard Law, clerked for a Supreme Court justice, and has never faced a real challenge to his authority. His courtroom is decorated with portraits of legal legends, all white, all male, all from a different era. To Stones, the law is tradition, and tradition doesn't change for anyone, but Jasmine Crockett represents everything that makes Stones uncomfortable about modern America. At just 33, Crockett is a civil rights attorney turned congresswoman who grew up in the working-class neighborhoods of St. Louis before making her mark in Dallas. She put herself through law school, built a practice defending people who couldn't afford justice, and won her congressional seat by taking on the establishment and winning. Crockett isn't just any politician. She's a former public defender who spent years in courtrooms exactly like this one, fighting for clients that judges like Stones routinely dismissed. She knows the law better than most sitting judges, and she's never been afraid to call out injustice, even when it wears a black robe. The case that brought them together was supposed to be routine, a civil rights lawsuit alleging voter suppression. In Texas, the kind of case that usually gets quietly settled or dismissed. But this case was different because it involved documented evidence of systematic disenfranchisement, evidence that Crockett had personally helped gather during her time as a civil rights attorney. The stakes couldn't be higher. This wasn't just about one lawsuit. This was about whether the federal courts would continue to protect voting rights or whether judges like Stones could simply laugh off civil rights concerns. For Crockett, this represented everything she'd fought for her entire career. For Stones, it was just another Tuesday. What neither the judge nor anyone else in that courtroom expected was that Crockett had spent months preparing for this exact moment. She knew Stone's history, his patterns, his weaknesses, and she was about to use all of it against him. The tension in Judge Stones's courtroom had been building for weeks leading up to this moment. But what happened during the first hour of proceedings would set the stage for one of the most dramatic confrontations in modern legal history. It started with the small things, the way Judge Stones consistently mispronounced Crockett's name, calling her Jasmine Crockett, despite multiple corrections. The way he allowed defense attorneys to interrupt her mid-sentence while cutting her off when she tried to respond. The way he rolled his eyes when she cited recent civil rights precedents. "Your Honor," Crockett said during her opening statement, her voice steady and professional. "The evidence will show a pattern of systematic voter suppression that violated the constitutional rights of over 50,000 Texas residents." Judge Stones leaned back in his chair, a bemused expression on his face. "Congresswoman," "Crochet," he said deliberately, emphasizing the wrong pronunciation. "These are serious allegations. I trust you have more than political rhetoric to support them." The first warning sign came when Stones sustained every single objection from the defense team, even ones that were clearly baseless. When Crockett presented documented evidence of polling place closures in predominantly black neighborhoods, Stones questioned its relevance. When she showed statistical analysis proving discriminatory impact, he called it speculative. But the real escalation began when Crockett